Reimagining Success, Episode 70.
You're listening to Reimagining Success, the podcast where we help you reimagine your future, designing a life and career beyond the 9 to 5 that allows you the freedom, flexibility and fulfillment that you've been dreaming of. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg. Now, let's get started on those dreams.
Hello there, and thanks as ever for listening. Today we are talking about building your resilience. Now, resilience comes from the Latin resilience, however you pronounce that, which is bouncing back. So the idea is really at its simplest, bouncing back from setbacks. And in the context of business, I think developing your resilience, developing your confidence as well is absolutely critical. And it's one of my 5 pillars, in fact, of creating a sustainable escape plan from the corporate 9 to 5. Now, it may be one of those buzzword topics, so apologies for that, but there's probably a reason for that. I've been running a few webinars recently on stress and resilience for some of my corporate clients. You hear more and more about it in the media. And of course, the topic of mental health, such an important one, is becoming a big, important part of the national conversation, which is good, thank goodness. So resilience, the ability to bounce back, to sort of integrate bad experiences and move on, to keep moving on. Now, why is this important in the context of working for yourself, in running a business, or even just changing direction in your career? Well, the thing is, you're outside of the safety of your comfort zone. In particular, when you're starting your own business, you're no longer in full-time employment, or you're about to not be. You're potentially alone. You feel more exposed. Now, ironically, and I keep reading things about this, so I think the mindset, the conversation is changing here as well. Ironically, we tend to cling on to the safety and security of a full-time job. And yet people, and I'm sure you know people, if not you yourself, have been affected by redundancies. People are let go. There are restructurings. There are, mergers and things in companies. Everybody faces redundancy at some point in their career. And the economy is not always as stable as we want it to be. Now, I'm not saying that working for yourself avoids the economic downturns, recessions, and so on. However, you are so much more in control of your own destiny, if you want to go big picture, or your specific income, if you want to be a bit more mundane. In particular, if you have a portfolio career, if you have different diverse income streams, if you continue with your corporate work in perhaps a freelancing capacity, at least in the short term, and you build another business, you are so much more in control of your income. You are actually safer and more secure, and certainly you have more autonomy, more responsibility, and you have more freedom to take care of you, your loved ones, and so on. And ultimately, I think that's what we all want to do. So again, resilience is so important because you are outside of the safety of that comfort zone of employment. So not to say that it is any less safe outside of employment. In fact, again, I would argue that you're safer when you're working for yourself, assuming you've got certain things in place. However, if you have been in a full-time job for many years, decades even, then of course this is going to be very different for you. You're going to feel quite exposed, and you feel them really keenly, these ups and downs. Now, there's the cliched roller coaster of feast and famine that we think freelancers experience. I don't agree that has to be the case. Some people will say, and I hear prospects and clients say, I know that's just what working for yourself is like. No, it doesn't have to be that way. And there are strategies we can take. We can redesign or refine our business model to diversify income streams, to have different types of packages, to work with different types of clients and so on. Now, this is something we'll be talking about in the coming weeks, but I want to focus more on sort of the mental mindset aspect of resilience. So why is it important? Because you are inevitably going to have some ups and downs. You are more exposed. You're potentially lonely, working for yourself, by yourself. Now, you may have a team, you may have a co-founder, but ultimately, you're very much more exposed than you were in a big team, in a big organization, and so on. Not to mention all the safety net of having your pension and your, health insurance and so on. So again, there are tangible aspects to building your resilience in terms of having savings, looking at your business model, revenue streams, financials. But here today, we're looking more at the mental or personal side of it. So in no particular order, and I don't have any sort of catchy 5 top tips for you this week. I just wanted to almost have a stream of consciousness about a few different thoughts around developing your resilience. And one of the things is being flexible and adaptable and accepting that change does happen. And that's hard. And by the way, that happens in your office as well, right? Your boss can move on, or roles will change, the organization structure and so on. Some things are outside our control. So going, oh, that's so frustrating, that's okay, but not then getting caught up in negativity and just wasting time and energy on really vexing yourself at all these things that you actually can't control. So thinking about, hang on a second, this has happened, sucks for me, but what can I do in this context? How can I actually find the positive, right? Looking for the positive, not to be ridiculously naive and optimistic, but there are often opportunities in adversity. So sometimes people are made redundant and they realise that's the kick up the backside they needed to go off and actually do what they really want to do. Sometimes there's something very negative that happened, but actually out of that, out of the ashes will rise the phoenix, and there's something incredible that you can now do because of this unfortunate circumstance. So, change doesn't have to be terrible and tragic. It could be something a bit more neutral. It can be, unfortunately, something, personally painful or whatever it might be. Whatever the case, once you've mourned, once you've been frustrated, you've shouted, whatever it is you need to do, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again, as Fred Astaire would say. But being flexible, adaptable is such an important soft skill to have in today's world, in today's economy, and certainly as a business owner. So being adaptable, accepting that change happens, some things just outside of control. And you know what? You can have a loose framework strategy. Don't stick too religiously to your plan, and then make sure that you're able to adapt when needed. Now, I talked about, looking for the positive as well. So however bleak, what new opportunities might there be as a result? If you were an eternal optimist, maybe that's something you could ask, a more theoretical approach. How would you actually look at this? Related to this, we used to say at Procter & Gamble that, in fact, managers said, don't come with problems, come with solutions. So however junior and inexperienced we were, they wanted us to come not just saying, oh my gosh, this has happened, what's going to happen, this won't be ready on time, what are we going to do? But, okay, here's the context, and think about it ourselves before we came to the boss. Now, the boss might then have a solution which we haven't thought of, but at least we've attempted to think about it. So looking at the situation with curiosity, if possible, a bit of objectivity. How would you advise a friend, a colleague, a client who face this problem? In a theoretical brainstorming, almost do like a tree diagram. What are all the possible ways of responding, and not reacting, but responding in this situation? So really embracing problem solving, a problem solving approach, rather than just getting caught up in problems. And I see this in so-called prospects, I guess, who could potentially be clients, but I don't think they will become clients because they're not interested in looking for a solution. They'll just say, oh, that'll never work for me because of my situation. You don't understand. No, I've done all that. I've tried all this. But of course you haven't tried everything. And if you have, then by all means, I think it's very unlikely that we will have tried everything. Probably you've only tried a fraction, and you haven't even tried very much at all. You haven't worked with someone who is a few steps ahead of you and that can actually guide you. You haven't actually taken a step back and embraced that positive, constructive mindset of, okay, this is the situation. Again, FML, is that it? Yes, FML, let's not swear on the podcast. And, that sucks, but in this context, it's going to take longer, it's going to be harder work, but, this is so important to me. I'm so committed. Again, that discipline we talked about a few weeks ago. And so how can I begin to have a problem-solving approach? I have this knowledge gap, how can I fill it? There's this issue, I'm not getting results from this, what can I do to change it? Now, those are sort of practical, theoretical, intellectual things. A physical thing I want you to do is to take care of yourself, because it's so much harder to be resilient, to pick yourself up, to swallow your ego, to keep on going when you're not sleeping, when you're lacking energy, when you're unwell. I get migraines if I'm pushing myself too hard. If you're not well, then for goodness sake, how on earth are you going to be all positive and problem solving and adaptable and so on, right? So please, please, please prioritize your self-care, as it's called these days. Physical health, emotional, mental, spiritual, all aspects of your health, your well-being, and make sure you're really prioritizing that as a foundation to everything else you do. Related to that, in terms of mental and emotional well-being, make sure you nurture your social connections. So I often talk about finding your tribe, an online or offline sort of business community. And I'd always recommend you to join my One Step Outside Facebook group if you haven't done that already, One Step Outside, and the Outsiders Business Accelerator as well, as an alternative, as a paid program where you can work alongside like-minded business owners. However, it's not just the business contacts. And by the way, many of these business people will become friends as well, which is incredible when you join a program like this. But really thinking about personal friends, professional, having that community sense of belonging. And when I first started my corporate career, I think I was very lucky because some of the girls who had transferred from a different company in Germany, they only knew each other. I felt they only knew the colleagues. And so every day they'd be on their Blackberries chatting about the latest perfume launch or advertising, whatever it was. Because I'd studied in Geneva before I started at the company there in Geneva, I had a network of friends who I would see, and they'd go, how was your work? And I'd spend 2 minutes saying it, and then they'd be bored and we'd talk about something else. So maybe you need people who don't get what it's like to be a business owner and who just can chat about something completely different. So really nurture your social connections so you have that network, whatever you want to call it, of cheerleaders, of supporters, of people who you can vent to, of people who do get it, people who don't get it. Find the people who you need. And I guess finally, although there's so many things to talk about here, I think we need a bit of a sense of humour. A bit of the FML sucks for me kind of approach. You know what? It's hard if you don't know whether to laugh or cry when something happens. In a few weeks, months' time, you can tell the story, you can write a blog post about it, you can share it as a vulnerable post, you can write an article, share it in a podcast episode in the future, and you can go, as I often do, you know what, when I was first starting out, this is what happened and this is what I learned. So in the future, and try to do that, by the way, take a step back, imagine, am I going to care about this in 10 years' time? Probably not. Laugh at yourself, laugh at the situation. It's so ridiculous. You know what can we do? It sucks. It's rubbish. I can't believe all these things have happened in one go. And, one day I thought I had 10 contracts coming in. Now I have none. Or, this has happened. It's completely out of my control. Ha ha ha. Oh, well. And then again, pick yourself up, dust yourself off and try something else. So really having a sense of humour, I think, is key to that resilience. Again, if we just take everything super seriously, and I did talk last week about taking a business seriously, but that doesn't mean that we need to be super serious and hardcore all the time. Really enjoying the process. And as a tangent, I was talking to a client about this the other day. He was exploring developing sort of a passion project potentially into a side hustle and business. And he was getting stressed about it because he is incredibly good at what he does and he really wanted to do an amazing job. But I reminded him, hang on a second, and he reminded himself, the whole point of this is to be enjoying this. The whole point of us designing these businesses is that we're loving them, is that we're enjoying the work we're doing. And yes, there will be aspects that we don't love. And yes, it'll suck when some things go wrong. But overall, ultimately, we want the sum of positive things to be more than the negative. So if it's not, you know what, then we need to make some changes. But, ultimately, again, these ups and downs, the roller coaster, it doesn't have to be so extreme. We can make savvy business choices to even out those ups and downs. And by the way, we need to even out the ups as much as the downs. Now, this might sound a bit negative, but it's very easy, and I see this again and again, for people to celebrate, oh my goodness, this incredible thing has happened, it's so amazing. And they get carried away, and then you come crashing down all the more painfully when you have that inevitable dip. And it's not to say that we shouldn't. And in fact, it's really important to celebrate when things go really well, but just acknowledge it, celebrate it, and then, okay, back to work, keep doing what I'm doing. Whether it's a negative, it's a dip, or a massive peak, if it's a positive, an incredible thing, acknowledge it, mourn it, celebrate it, depending on the situation, and then just keep going. Again, we talked about the discipline the last few weeks. Last week, we talked about really embracing the mindset of a business owner, showing up, doing the work. I'm always talking about being consistent all the time. Now, of course, again, there will be times when we're not very well. There will be stuff that we need to deal with that will take longer. That's okay. Be in it for the long haul. Know that these are setbacks. They might be major setbacks, but it's okay for now. You put it to one side, you do what you have to do, and then when you're ready, you pick it up again. Maybe you'll never be ready, and that's okay too. Or maybe this will be dealt with quite quickly and you can move on again. Now, I'm just talking in very general terms. It's hard to speak to a specific personal issue, but I hope you're hearing me. I hope this is resonating, perhaps with something that you've been going through, or certainly will go through at some point, because we all do. So again, this is the ability to bounce back, to integrate bad experiences, to see them as learning opportunities, challenges, temporary setbacks, and then to focus on the long haul, to keep plugging away, to keep moving forwards, to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, to nurture our social connections, and not just the business ones, the mentors and coaches, but also friends and family who are going to pick up the pieces, but also not understand, in fact, and just give us a complete break from the craziness that is running your own business. Look for the positive, be flexible, adaptable, embrace problem solving, rather than getting into that spiral of negativity and listing all the reasons why this is never going to work. And above all, retain your sense of humour. You will laugh about it at some point, don't you worry. So maybe you can't right now, but just, take a bit of a step back, think, you know what, from a massive, big picture perspective, this isn't the end of the world. It's really disappointing, but hey ho, off we go and let's try again. So I hope that was a little bit of inspiration, a bit of a push maybe in the right direction. Certainly, I'd love for you to think about what you could do to build your resilience. And I'm sure you can come up with lots of other things. It's such a big topic. But really think about how you can get better at managing those ups and downs. And again, we'll talk business strategy in the coming weeks. But for now, we're looking at sort of the personal mindset attitude side. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Reimagining Success with Anna Lundberg. If you're looking for support and encouragement as you begin to reimagine success in your life, then come on over and join us in the One Step Outside Facebook group. You'll find like-minded people who will cheer you on, as well as free training sessions and lots more. To join, visit onestepoutside.com/community or just search for One Step Outside on Facebook. I'll see you over there.